I bought a Mythical Starship. They said it was scrap, but I proved them wrong. Evan Hale walked through the orbital junkyard slowly, his boots making soft thuds against the metal catwalk. Around him, broken ships hung in space like dead stars. Some were barely more than twisted hulls. Others looked like they had been torn apart by ancient battles. Steam hissed from ruptured engines, and sparks flew from exposed circuits. The smell of ozone and scorched metal filled the air. Most people avoided this place. Aliens, humans, and even rogue salvagers came here sometimes, but only if they were desperate or foolish. But Evan was both. He had spent years fixing old ships, mending engines nobody else could touch. He understood the life inside cold metal better than he understood people. And today, something had drawn him here. Something different. It was a massive ship, drifting at the edge of the junkyard. Its hull was dark, almost black, and etched with strange markings that no modern ship carried. Even the lighting of the yard seemed to dim around it. Most traders ignored it. A few whispered legends. They said it was mythical, built during a war long before humans even reached this sector. Others called it cursed. Some laughed and said it was just scrap. But Evan's curiosity burned. He stepped closer. The ship was enormous, far larger than anything a single human could pilot. Its hull was scratched, dented, and missing panels, but it was intact. Sensors showed the core was offline, yet it wasn't dead. The ship was breathing. Just barely, but it was alive in a way Evan could feel in his chest. "You're wasting your time, human," said a gruff voice behind him. Evan turned. An older alien trader stood nearby, his multi-eyed face glinting in the dim light. "That ship is junk. No one has touched it in 20 cycles. You can't fix it, and if you try, you'll die in there." Evan didn't answer. He walked closer, running his gloved hand along the hull. Cold metal kissed his fingers, but there was warmth under it too, like the heartbeat of a machine that refused to die. The alien sighed and spat into the void. "All legends, all lies. It's worthless. I don't know why humans even come here. Your kind always thinks old things are treasure." Evan smiled faintly. Humans had a way of seeing value where others saw trash. That's what made them survive. That's what had brought him here today. The seller was desperate. He wanted the space the ship took, wanted credits, wanted nothing to do with rumors or ghosts. "I'll sell it cheap," he said. "I swear, I don't care who takes it. Just don't make me pay for storage again." Evan raised an eyebrow. How cheap? The price was laughable. Less than what it would cost to repair one engine on a modern freighter. No human worth their salt would pass this chance, even if the odds were impossible. Evan agreed without hesitation. The transfer was quick. Paperwork signed, credits exchanged. The ship now belonged to him. And as he floated inside, the massive hull swallowing him whole, the air was thick with silence. The only sound was his own breathing in the helmet of his suit. He tapped a panel, then another. Nothing. All lights were dark. All screens were black. Every system seemed dead. Evan sighed. Most humans would have left, packed up their tools, and called it a failed gamble. But Evan was not most humans. He climbed into the main chamber. The room was enormous, filled with consoles and panels, most of them cracked or melted. Strange markings lined the walls. Some glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Evan felt a tingle run through him. It was not electricity. It was something older, something aware. "Hello?" he said quietly, almost afraid he would wake a ghost. The lights flickered once, then nothing. Evan frowned. A single flicker was not proof, but it was a sign. Something was alive here. Something waited. He started inspecting the panels. Every interface seemed alien. Buttons and levers responded strangely to his touch. Systems that should be dead showed faint signs of life when he interacted directly. A low hum began in the walls, like the ship was breathing slowly after centuries of sleep. Days passed. Evan slept in the captain's chair, eating rations and drinking water he had brought. He ran wires, replaced circuits, and cleaned the dust and rust. Every small success felt like a miracle. A door opened. A panel lit up. One engine hissed to life, though only a whisper of power. Other salvagers watched from the distance. Some laughed. Others whispered. News spread fast in the junkyard. The human thinks he can fix the mythical ship. They didn't believe in him. They didn't understand the bond forming between human and machine. The ship, meanwhile, began to respond in small ways. Systems that refused to work before started humming quietly when Evan approached. Consoles lit up with strange symbols that made no sense at first. But Evan, after long nights of study, began to recognize patterns. He didn't know the language, but he knew the logic. And humans were good at logic and improvisation. One night as he crawled through the engine bay, he noticed the core. It was massive, unlike anything modern engineers had built. Cracks and scorch marks ran along its surface, but it glowed faintly, almost like it was breathing. Evan reached out. His gloved hand touched the smooth metal. The core reacted. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. A low vibration ran through the hull. The ship had recognized him. It was alive, but it would only answer to one mind, the one willing to think, adapt, and endure. Traders began to whisper nervously. "Did you see that light?" one asked. "It's moving, but nobody's aboard." Evan ignored them. He had work to do. For the first time, he felt the ship's potential. He could sense it waiting for someone capable, and he was determined to be that someone. Days turned into weeks. Evan repaired one engine, then another. Hull sections that should have collapsed held steady. Sensors came online. Lights illuminated corridors that had been dark for centuries. And everywhere he went, the ship seemed to watch, guiding him silently. Then came the first test. Evan activated the engines fully. The ship shuddered, groaned, and then lifted slightly off its moorings. Sparks flew. Alarms screeched, but it floated. Not fully controlled yet, but alive and moving. The crowd outside fell silent. The same aliens who had laughed at him now stared in disbelief. You didn't," whispered the trader from before. He could not finish. He was too stunned. Evan smiled under his helmet. He felt no pride, only anticipation. He knew this was only the beginning. The ship had been waiting for a human like him. And now it was awake. Late that night, Evan sat in the captain's chair, staring at the stars outside the broken viewport. He didn't know exactly what the ship wanted, or what it could do, but he felt a connection stronger than any human friendship. It was a partnership between mind and machine. Somewhere deep inside the hull, something ancient stirred. It remembered battles it had fought, wars it had survived, fleets it had destroyed. And now, it was ready to teach a human how to fight too. For the first time in centuries, the mythical ship was no longer alone. Evan closed his eyes and whispered to the silence, "We'll prove them all wrong." And somewhere deep in the dark heart of the starship, the lights flickered in answer. The days that followed were long, grueling, and full of discovery. Evan Hale had never felt so alive. Every moment aboard the ship brought new challenges. Systems that should have been dead blinked with strange alien energy. Doors that refused to open now slid silently at his touch. Consoles lit up with symbols he could not read, yet somehow understood. The junkyard traders whispered behind his back, some in awe, some in fear. The mythical ship that everyone had dismissed as scrap was stirring. And it was clear to everyone who watched from a distance that Evan was not just repairing it. He was awakening it. Evan spent hours running his scanners over the hull. The ship's materials were unlike anything he had seen before. Old, yes, but somehow stronger than modern alloys, and beneath the scratches and scorch marks, the lines of the ship seemed to shimmer faintly, as if alive. "This ship doesn't want a pilot," he muttered to himself one evening. "It wants a thinker, a problem solver." The thought came to him suddenly. Perhaps that was why it had never answered anyone else. Alien salvagers tried brute force, technology they could barely understand, or sheer luck. Evan had neither, at least not in conventional terms. But he had patience, persistence, and the stubborn curiosity of a human. Evan returned to the main console. Symbols shifted on the display as his fingers hovered over them. The ship seemed to respond to intent rather than skill. He pressed one panel lightly. A holographic map flickered into existence. Star systems, fleets, and ancient battlefields hovered in the air, all overlaid with glowing lines of energy. "Impossible," he whispered. "This ship, it has memory. Real memory. Not just data storage, but history." He tapped another symbol, and the display shifted. A fleet of massive warships appeared, attacking something. From the way the lines moved, Evan realized it was a human, or at least someone moving like a human, fighting a fleet far larger than itself. The ship's core hummed louder. It pulsed like a heartbeat. It was alive, thinking, remembering. Over the next several days, Evan learned the ship's systems responded in ways he could not explain. He pressed a button, and life support stabilized in a section of the ship that had been flooded. He touched another panel and the engine room began to repair itself slowly, as if the ship recognized his understanding of machines. He even noticed small hints of humor, or at least something like it. Panels would flash when he made mistakes. An airlock would hiss impatiently when he took too long. He began to speak to it as if it were a partner, and the ship seemed to answer in kind. "You're not dead yet," he said one night, crouching by a damaged propulsion array. "Good. I need you alive. We have work to do."
A low vibration ran through the hull.
The lights flickered in a pattern that almost resembled acknowledgement. Evan realized something remarkable. The ship only responded to humans. Aliens had tried in the past. They had touched the controls roughly, shouted at the systems, or tried to hack its cores. The ship ignored them. But humans could reason, improvise, and adapt. And now, the ship was testing him. Word spread quickly. Traders whispered nervously. Ships from nearby stations began scanning the junkyard from orbit. Some reports even reached small news feeds. "Human awakens the mythical ship." The stories varied, most claiming Evan had lost his mind, some claiming he had discovered a miracle. One morning, Evan climbed into the engine bay and noticed something strange. A panel he had examined 100 times before now glowed faintly. Symbols moved across it like a stream of water. He traced the lines carefully. They formed patterns that resembled movement through space, but he could not tell if it was past, present, or something else. "Memory?" he asked aloud. "You're showing me your history?" The ship hummed louder. A series of holographic images flickered to life. Battles, explosions, and fleets appeared. The ship had been built for war, an unstoppable weapon designed to fight enemies that outnumbered it 10 to 1. But this ship had survived. Somehow, it had been hidden, waiting for a mind capable of unlocking it. Evan leaned back. The magnitude of what he had found was staggering. This was not a scrap ship. This was a guardian, a sentinel built to protect, to survive, to think beyond any normal pilot's ability. But curiosity was not without danger. One day, as Evan worked on rewiring the main propulsion system, alarms blared across the hull. He froze. Scanners showed a small fleet approaching, aliens who had been watching the junkyard for weeks. They were armed, curious, and clearly interested in claiming the ship for themselves. Evan's heart raced. He had no weapons, only his tools and the ship itself. But the ship pulsed in response, a steady, calm rhythm that contrasted with the panic rising in his chest. It was as if it were telling him, "Trust yourself. I trust you." He quickly activated the engines. The ship lifted off the docking platform, though slowly and unsteadily. The alien fleet gawked from above, scanning the massive hull that seemed almost alive. "You're not supposed to move yet," one trader whispered from a nearby station. Evan ignored him. The ship's systems adapted to his commands. Lights that had been dead for centuries blinked alive. Shields formed in moments, creating a protective barrier around the hull. Even the alien sensors struggled to penetrate it. The fleet made a show of strength, weapons powered up. Orders were shouted in alien languages Evan didn't understand, but the ship reacted instinctively. It redirected energy from sections that were damaged to strengthen shields, Engines adjusted in real time. Weapons reconfigured themselves. Evan realized what was happening. The ship wasn't just alive. It was learning. By the time the fleet realized the ship was not scrap, it was already too late. Evan lifted the ship higher, out of range of station turrets. He navigated through debris fields with a precision that made even experienced pilots gasp. The ancient ship bent the rules of physics, responding to Evan's improvisation as if it could anticipate his thoughts. When they finally stopped, hovering in the emptiness beyond the junkyard, Evan took a deep breath. The fleet hesitated, then slowly withdrew. The trader who had doubted him the most whispered, It moves like a living thing." Evan smiled. "It is a living thing," he said softly. That night, he returned to the captain's chair, exhausted but exhilarated. The stars outside seemed sharper than ever, as if the ship itself wanted him to see them clearly. He studied the holographic maps again, tracing lines of light that showed past battles and ancient fleets. The ship pulsed in response to his gaze, almost like a heartbeat. Evan realized that this bond was unique. Other species had failed. Aliens had never understood the ship's logic, its requirements, or its patience. But humans, stubborn, adaptive, and curious humans, were perfect. Evan spoke quietly, almost as if confessing a secret. "I don't know why you waited for me, but I'm here now, and I won't let you die again." The lights in the main chamber flickered in agreement. Over the next few weeks, Evan tested every system he could reach. Life support worked flawlessly. Navigation recalibrated itself and propulsion reached power levels that he could not have imagined. The ship's memory seemed to expand with each interaction, revealing new functions, new weapons, and even hints of faster-than-light travel that were hidden in layers of encryption. Evan began to understand the magnitude of what he had uncovered. This ship was not just powerful. It was smart, and it was ready to prove itself, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a force that could tip the balance in a galaxy that often underestimated humans. Yet, even with all these discoveries, danger loomed. The junkyard authorities were growing suspicious. They sent patrols to check on the ship. They wanted to claim it, study it, or even destroy it if they deemed it too dangerous. Evan knew he had only a small window of time to learn from the ship before others intervened. One night, as he sat in the captain's chair and looked at the stars, the ship pulsed gently beneath him. It had accepted him. It had chosen him. And for the first time in centuries, it was ready to show the galaxy why it had been hidden away, why it had waited for a mind like his. And Evan understood. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was waking up. Rumors spread faster than light in the systems near the junkyard. Traders, pirates, and small stations whispered of the human who had awakened the mythical ship. Some laughed at the idea. Others feared it. But all were watching now. Evan Hale knew his time was short. Authorities would soon arrive, and the curious fleets lurking in nearby systems might not wait politely. The ship had shown him its power in small ways. Now it was time to see if it could survive beyond the safety of the junkyard. He spent the morning running checks, inspecting every system once again. The engines purred like a giant beast ready to hunt. The shields were stable, glowing faintly blue as the ship hummed beneath him. Weapon systems were functional but ancient, designed for enemies who had outnumbered them by fleets. The controls responded to his mind and hands in ways that defied logic. "Ready?" he asked softly, as if speaking to a trusted partner. The ship vibrated slightly in response. It was ready. He took a deep breath and activated the jump engines. A low hum filled the hull as the ship lifted fully off the dock. The junkyard traders stared in awe, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. The ship moved like a living being, graceful yet powerful. Evan navigated carefully through the debris field that surrounded the junkyard. He kept the ship near the edge of sensor range, avoiding detection by any fleets that might be tracking him. But luck was limited. By the time he reached open space, a small fleet of alien ships was waiting. They had been tipped off. Their hulls gleamed in the starlight, weapons ready, engines glowing with anticipation. They clearly expected an easy target. "Human!" one of their messages boomed over universal channels. "Surrender the vessel! It is forbidden for your species to control such power." Evan smiled beneath his helmet. "You'll have to take it from me," he replied. The aliens laughed. Their scanners marked the ship as slow, old, and vulnerable. They moved in formation, confident. But they had underestimated one thing: a human with a mind tuned to adapt, and a ship that had waited centuries for someone like him. The first shots were fired. Laser streams cut through space, striking near the hull. The shields absorbed the impact, glowing brighter as they redistributed power. Evan adjusted the energy flow, redirecting strength from less damaged systems to the shields. The ship responded instantly, bending the incoming fire away from critical sections. He laughed. The fleet had no idea what they were up against. Evan's fingers danced over the controls. The ship had weapons, yes, but they were old and unfamiliar. It was not the firepower that would win this fight. It was intelligence. He rerouted power to the plasma cannons, overcharging them carefully. The cannons fired not in predictable patterns but in arcs designed to disable enemy ships without destroying them. The alien fleet faltered. Their formations broke as their sensors failed to track the unpredictable shots. Ships collided, forcing some to retreat. Evan realized something remarkable. The ship was not just obeying his commands. It was anticipating the enemy's moves, learning from their actions, adapting in real time. This is impossible," one alien captain muttered over the comms. "It's like the ship knows us." It did. But it didn't know them as machines. It knew them as obstacles, as patterns to be solved, as problems to overcome. And humans, with their adaptability and stubborn creativity, were perfect partners for such a mind. Evan maneuvered the ship into a narrow asteroid field. The fleet followed, confident they could corner him. But the mythical ship was designed for impossible situations. Shields and thrusters worked in tandem, allowing the hull to slip between asteroids that should have crushed it. Enemy fire struck rocks instead of the ship. One by one, enemy vessels faltered. Some were disabled without being destroyed, spreading fear rather than death. The aliens realized their mistake too late. Their ancient tactics could not handle a ship that thought in centuries, not cycles. Evan's heart pounded. The ship responded to his every adjustment, bending energy, redirecting fire, and even compensating for his mistakes. When one cannon overheated, the ship rerouted power from engines to maintain balance. When an asteroid shifted unexpectedly, shields and thrusters moved as one. By the time the battle ended, the alien fleet was retreating in disarray. They had underestimated a human and a ship that refused to die. Rumors of the fight spread almost instantly. Traders across nearby systems transmitted the story. A human had fought a fleet alone and survived. Evan allowed himself a brief moment of pride. He knew this was only the beginning. The ship had proven itself, but the galaxy would not stop sending challenges. Every powerful faction would want to know how a human could control a ship that was supposed to be mythical, impossible, or dead. That night, Evan sat in the captain's chair, looking out at the stars. The ship hummed quietly beneath him, its core pulsing in a steady rhythm. He traced his fingers over the controls, feeling the heartbeat of a vessel that had waited centuries for a mind like his. It was more than a ship. It was a partner. And it was alive in a way that no human or alien had ever experienced. Yet, even as he relaxed, Evan knew the danger was far from over. Fleets would come, authorities would question him, and some would even try to seize the ship. But he was ready. He had learned the ship's logic, adapted to its systems, and forged a bond that no one could break. And the galaxy had just begun to notice. The next morning, news feeds from nearby systems carried the story. "Human salvager controls mythical ship," screamed one headline. "Alien fleets retreat before one human," read another. Traders and pilots debated what they had witnessed. Some refused to believe it. Others feared what was coming. Evan ignored the headlines. His focus was the ship. He spent hours running simulations, testing the limits of the shields and propulsion. The weapons systems, though ancient, could be adapted to new energy types. Every system had layers of hidden capability. Every panel responded to human logic, not brute force. By midday, he had learned something astonishing. The ship had memory far beyond what a normal vessel could hold. It remembered battles, strategies, even enemy weaknesses. And it was willing to teach him, guide him, and fight with him. For the first time, Evan realized the truth. The ship was not designed for a normal pilot. It was designed for someone capable of thinking, adapting, surviving. And humans, with their stubborn resilience and curiosity, were perfect. The day passed quietly after that. Evan drifted through space, charting courses for nearby systems in case another threat appeared. The ship hummed beneath him, responding to his thoughts before he even spoke. And then came the first message from an authority. It was not a threat, not yet, but it carried weight. Evan Hale, it began. You are hereby ordered to surrender the vessel known as Mythical for inspection and regulation. Failure to comply will be met with immediate enforcement action. Evan frowned. He knew what that meant. They wanted the ship for study, for power, for control. And if they couldn't get it peacefully, they would take it by force. He looked around the command deck, feeling the pulse of the ship beneath him. It vibrated like a promise. It trusted him, and he would not betray that trust. Not today, he whispered. Not ever, the message went unanswered. Evan plotted a course toward uncharted space, where the ship could recover and train him further. The authorities might come, but they would have to face the impossible. A human and a ship that refused to die. That thought adapted and learned together. As the stars stretched past the viewport, Evan realized something profound. The galaxy had underestimated humans. They had dismissed him, the ship, and the combination of the two. But the mythical ship had chosen him, and together they were unstoppable. By the time the fleet arrived, if it ever did, they would find not a salvager with a broken ship, but a human with a partner that had survived centuries, and a mind capable of proving that humans were more than they seemed. The mythical ship was awake, learning, and ready, and the galaxy would never forget the day it first moved under human hands. Evan Hale sat in the captain's chair, his fingers resting lightly on the controls. The mythical ship hummed softly beneath him, a deep, steady pulse that felt like a heartbeat. Outside, stars stretched endlessly, beautiful and cold. The galaxy had begun to notice him. Rumors of a human who had awakened a legendary ship spread like wildfire. And now, the real test was coming. The communication console beeped urgently. A stern voice crackled through the universal channel. Evan Hale, began. You are ordered to surrender the vessel for inspection. Compliance is mandatory. Failure to comply will result in immediate enforcement action. This is not a request. Evan leaned back, studying the holographic display. The message was official. The authorities were no longer content to watch from afar. They wanted control, and they wanted to remove a human from a ship they did not understand. He smiled faintly. They finally noticed, he muttered. The ship pulsed in response. It understood. It had waited centuries for a mind capable of thinking, adapting, and surviving. Evan knew one thing. The authorities could not take it. Not peacefully. Not by force, and certainly not without learning a lesson about humans. He activated the engines and began plotting a course away from known space. Every system on the ship responded instantly. Shields glimmered, weapons hummed quietly in readiness, and the hull seemed to breathe with life. Evan had long ago learned to communicate with the ship not just through the controls but through intent. And the ship responded with full cooperation. A small fleet appeared on the sensors moments later. Enforcement vessels, sleek, modern, and armed with weapons designed to destroy. They surrounded him in a careful formation, clearly expecting to intimidate. A single message repeated over all channels. Surrender immediately, human. Resistance is futile. Evan's jaw tightened. He knew they underestimated him. They thought a human, alone, could not control a ship that was not only old, but legendary. They were wrong. Let's show them what they've underestimated, he whispered. He ran simulations in real time, diverting power to shields, engines, and the ship's weapon systems. The mythical ship responded instantly, pulsing with energy that defied conventional logic. When the enforcement fleet fired, their attacks bounced harmlessly off adaptive shields. When they attempted to flank him, the ship twisted, turning in ways that should have been impossible, keeping Evan safe and giving him advantage. The first exchange was enough to silence the skeptics. Enforcement officers had expected a quick capture, a demonstration of power. Instead, they encountered a force they could not understand. Systems moved beyond their comprehension. Weapons fired unpredictably. Shields adapted, and the ship seemed to learn from every maneuver. One of the larger vessels tried to close in, confident it could breach the hull. Evan anticipated the move. He overcharged a plasma cannon, firing in a precise arc that disabled the enemy ship's engines without destroying the vessel. It drifted uselessly in space, a warning to the others. The fleet faltered. Confusion rippled through the communication channels. How could one human control a ship designed to outthink centuries of warfare? How could a single mind adapt to every tactic, every strategy, instantly? Evan did not answer them. He focused on the task at hand, proving the ship was not scrap, proving humans were capable, and proving that the galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. Hours passed as he maneuvered carefully, avoiding unnecessary destruction but demonstrating control. The mythical ship moved as one with him. Engines pulsed, shields flickered, weapons readied and fired with silent precision. Evan realized the truth. The ship had chosen him because it needed a mind that could think beyond limitations. Humans, stubborn, creative, and unpredictable, were perfect. Finally, the fleet commander sent one last message, desperation clear in the tone. Cease resistance immediately. You cannot hold the vessel. You will be destroyed if you continue. Evan leaned back and spoke softly, almost to himself. You don't understand. This ship, it's not a weapon for power. It's a guardian. And I'm human. We don't destroy what we don't need to. We protect. The ship pulsed in response, almost as if agreeing with his words. Its core glowed brighter, showing the depth of its connection to him. The enforcement fleet hesitated. Reports came in from sensors, shields adapting, engines outmaneuvering them, and weapons striking with precision that avoided casualties. Some ships began to back off, unwilling to risk engagement further. Evan took a deep breath. The mythical ship had proven itself without killing unnecessarily. Humans had proven themselves without showing aggression. The galaxy was watching, and they had learned something important. Humans did not need brute force to win. They relied on intelligence, creativity, and courage. Finally, the enforcement fleet retreated entirely. Communications went silent. The authorities would need time to rethink their approach. Evan knew he had bought more than a reprieve. He had bought understanding. For a moment, he allowed himself to relax. He floated in the captain's chair, looking at the stars. The mythical ship hummed softly beneath him, a pulse of ancient life and newfound trust. They were partners now, bound not by commands but by choice and understanding. The next day, news broadcasts across nearby systems reported the events in disbelief. Headlines shouted, "Human salvager controls legendary ship. Fleet retreats before one human and his vessel. The mythical ship is real, and humanity commands it." Evan read the reports quietly. He had no need for fame. He had only needed to survive and prove the truth. Humans were capable of more than others believed. Authorities sent envoys to negotiate, not with threats but with offers of alliance. They wanted to study the ship, learn its secrets, and possibly join forces with the human who could command it. Evan considered the offers carefully. The ship pulsed beneath him, guiding him subtly. It had survived centuries alone, and had chosen him to be its human counterpart. Together, they would decide their own path. Evan replied, carefully wording his response. Humans would cooperate, not submit. The ship would be shared, yes, but only in the spirit of protection and defense. Not for domination, not for power. The authorities agreed reluctantly. Their pride stung, but their curiosity piqued. Traders and alien species began to respect humans more. They realized that intelligence, adaptability, and courage, qualities humans excelled at, could not be measured by technology alone. Evan spent weeks training with the ship. Every system, every panel, every weapon was explored. The ship showed him strategies, battle simulations from long ago, and ways to survive against forces vastly stronger. Every lesson strengthened the bond between human and vessel. He realized something profound. Humans had been underestimated for centuries. They were seen as fragile, limited, and weak, but their greatest strength lay not in raw power, but in creativity, determination, and the ability to see value where others saw nothing. And that was why the mythical ship had chosen him. It had waited for a mind capable of understanding, adapting, and surviving. Not a mind of fear or greed, but of courage and resilience. One evening, as Evan sat in the captain's chair, he looked out at the stars. The ship pulsed gently beneath him. He spoke softly. "We proved them wrong. They thought it was scrap. They thought we were weak, but we're not. We see what others overlook. We fix what others abandon. And we survive." The ship responded with a steady pulse, a silent affirmation. Together, human and vessel had changed the galaxy's perception forever. News continued to spread across the systems. The mythical ship became a legend once more, but this time with a human at its heart. Traders, explorers, and even governments began to respect humanity in ways they had never done before. Evan knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, opportunities, and mysteries. But he had learned that humans, working with their ingenuity, courage, and resilience, could face anything, even what others believed to be impossible. The mythical ship, once forgotten and dismissed, now sailed under human command, a symbol of what determination and intelligence could achieve. It was proof that humans could not be underestimated, that one person with the right mind and heart could change the course of events. And as Evan guided the ship through the stars, he whispered quietly, almost to himself, "Let them watch. Let them learn. We are not finished, and we will never be underestimated again." The ship pulsed beneath him in agreement. Together they were unstoppable. The galaxy had finally learned the lesson. Humans could take what others threw away, fix it, and turn it into something that could change the course of history. The mythical ship was no longer scrap, and Evan Hale, the human who had dared to believe, had proven them all wrong.